Welcome to a weekly episode of Talk. We're your host Eddie Marmolejo.
And I'm Jaime Moreno.
I'm just glad we got two episodes back to back. There was some punt with a lot of things going on. First and foremost, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Nancy Pelosi has activated her warrior mode. And I'm not speaking that she will fight you in the halls of Congress, but in the streets. USA Today reporter reported that when asked Nancy Pelosi what she would have done if she had no protection and had stood toe to toe with the insurrectionists, she said, "I would have fought them off because I'm a street fighter." In other news,
well, how old is she? Like 80? What the hell?
Joe Biden, excuse me. Senate Democrats are looking to pack the court as new legislation is now being introduced into the Senate, where they will see they can add more judges to the court because, you know, they just don't like that it's overwhelming conservative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
So with that being said, we will talk about this and more. But first and foremost, thank you once again for tuning to Talk. Always follow us, leave your comments, share it with your people, and let them know that we're here speaking facts and truth. And with that being said, Jaime, let's get to the first topic of today, which is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, right? Before we begin this topic, the NFL, right, today, you know, I'm a big football guy. I love football, Philadelphia Eagles, you know, lifelong fan. Yeah, oh my God, you still watch football? Everything's going. I love the sport. It's my guilty pleasure. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyways, the NFL today set out protocols that basically state that no one who has received the vaccine can basically conduct operations with their team. So, because they want to protect everybody and so on and so forth. They just said, yeah, there's so many great things in 2020. We want to keep that train going. So if you have not taken the vaccine, you basically can't work. That's the gist of it. My question is to the NFL, did y'all see the report from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that came out today? Why the FDA has put a halt on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? And Jaime, so what happened?
So pretty much, according to reports, 6 women have died or are in critical condition because of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Based on their vaccine, these 6 women received out of normal emergency type of blood clots, right? So blood clots can be easily dealt with, but the blood clots these women got was so severe that it caused the death and critical condition of others. So that's what's going on with the Johnson & Johnson. Out of the millions they already passed out, and people got the vaccine already, 6 received this abnormal, extremely dangerous, extremely rare type of blood clot as a reaction to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now think about it. They could have easily said, oh, it's just 6 people. We'll continue doing the vaccine. The numbers are low, right? So we can continue the vaccine. They stopped the whole production and distribution of Johnson & Johnson. The government halted it, and Johnson & Johnson halted it, right? That's not including the symptoms people received after the vaccine from the Moderna vaccine and so on and so forth, right? People got sick, people got ill, people got, you know, some side effects and stuff. They didn't stop those production because, you know, those are part of the COVID vaccine symptoms, part of, you know, what happens when you get the vaccine and so on and so forth. But the Johnson & Johnson case with the blood clots, it's interesting because despite other negative effects of the vaccine that have been reported throughout and other severe consequences, they didn't stop because of that. They stopped because of these 6 clots. So with that being said, we have to remind ourselves that the vaccine is not a cure for COVID, right? We got to remind ourselves that the vaccine is just going to help your immune system to better fight off the actual virus. It doesn't guarantee you're not going to get the virus. It does not guarantee you're going to be immune to it. It just means that your body's going to be able to fight it off, right? Or be better prepared in case it receives the virus in your body. Given that, the Johnson & Johnson case still proves that this vaccine is still unpredictable. It's still dangerous in such a way. Despite the many test results and the trial, it still has some negative consequences of it. And by them stopping it, right, should give us all Americans, whether Republicans, Democrats, liberals, or conservative, an eye-opener of like, wait a minute. It's great to get the vaccine, but there's still risk to it. And since there's still risk to it, you as an individual person have the right to choose whether or not you want the vaccine. If you want the vaccine, go for it. And you rather deal with the consequences of it, go for it. That's your prerogative. If you don't want the vaccine, you want to wait off on it, then you have that right to wait off on it too. And you shouldn't be condemned or forced or pressured into getting the vaccine.
Right.
And because only six people out of the hundred thousands of people who got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, right? They stopped the distribution of that vaccine. They could have easily said, oh, it's only six people. It's still safe. Let's continue to move on forward with the vaccine. But the fact that they stopped it because six people, right, out of the hundreds of thousands who received the vaccine, they stopped production. That should give us a warning that, wait a minute, the vaccine is great, but there's still uncertainty. There's still things that could be wrong with the vaccine that can lead to lethal consequences or, major repercussions. So we're not here to say that the vaccine is bad, that are conspiracy theories. We're not talking about like, it's all conspiracy, blah, blah. No, we're just talking about the facts. The fact is that the vaccine is still new. There's side effects to the vaccine. It is not a cure. You're not immune to it. You just build an immune system to, when you get the real thing, you can fight it off, but it's not a cure to COVID-19. And because it's still in the unknown phase and we don't know what's going to happen, we're here proposing that if you wish to take the vaccine, that's your choice. If you wish not to take the vaccine, that's your choice too. So America, let's stop fighting whether we need a vaccine passport, or you need to get the vaccine to go to work, or you need a vaccine to do this, or you need the vaccine to do that. We should be able to respect people. If you don't want to take the vaccine, that's your problem. That's their problem, right? We shouldn't be dictating what a person want or cannot do with their body, right?
Yeah. And that's where I know we had the discussion, you and I, in private, how the civil right aspect of it, right? Like, how will businesses force? Because the thing is also the government, and we talked about it last week, last episode, how it's incentivizing corporations who want to have gatherings to only have people that have approved vaccinations. So with these complications coming up from the vaccines, it's going to be interested if that dynamic changes, it stays the same, or we'll see what happens. But you're right. It's one of the reasons me personally, I said, I want to wait. I just want to see if anything happens and all that. But as we see more businesses are going, you should be vaccinated because you should be safe. Are you? So we'll see. But that was my thing.
Yeah, of course.
It's just funny how businesses are pushing for this, right? And now this stuff is coming out, and that's what I said. You should always wait before you do the vaccine. But by all means, if you still want to take it. But you can't do Johnson & Johnson for right now. You only can do Moderna. But we'll wait and see. So
yeah, and the argument here is like repeating. I know I'm repeating again. It's just that we need to stop fighting. If people don't want to take the vaccine, that's their problem. Let them go by their lives. If they get sick, that's on them. If you want to get the vaccine, live on your life. Don't be self-righteous. Like, I got the vaccine, I'm a hero, and post your little vaccine card on social media. That's your business. That's fine. Right. But we need to stop fighting over this. You have a choice whether or not you want to take it, and that's your problem. That's it, right? And then we have the whole guilt trip and stuff, but we won't go into that.
So we'll see how that goes. All right, so for this next topic, as you know, we as minority conservatives always get the names, the traitor names, Uncle Tom's and all that. But I want you to hear this interview, right?
Oh, God.
By Jim Acosta of CNN. Yeah, well, Jim Acosta still around? Yeah, he's still around. Okay. So he's talking with April Ryan, right? And who goes to say, I'll just let her talk.
Yeah, just let her,
I'll just let her
talk.
talk. So give me a second to
Warning,
right.
warning. This might hurt your head. Okay.
All right, let's get this show on the road here.
So I think that the Republican Party needs to understand where they are, and I think they're being where they are is only good for Democrats.
What do you think? Is he right?
He's absolutely right. Donald Trump, when he was president and after his presidency, is rallying the Democrats to go to the polls. And Democrats are winning because of Donald Trump, and that's why you're seeing all of these anti-voting rights efforts and restrictive efforts. But I will go back to something that Alice said. Alice said, right now the party is the party of Reagan. Maybe to an extent, but it's also a party that's an anti-Browning party. This is a party that does not like the Browning of America. This is a party that is cheating at the polls. This is a party that is doing anything by any means necessary to continue to try to win. So there are a lot of underhanded tactics that we see that have been placed in courtrooms, that have been placed in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, okay. Let's address April Ryan's comments because we're gonna hear the response in a second. But
My head hurts.
the Republican Party is against the Browning of America. Now, Jaime, we all know this is because of the January 6 riots. We saw the articles too, right? Oh, the January 6 riots represent the what did it say? The safeguard of white supremacy in America. Along those lines, I'm paraphrasing. But I'm like, okay, if the Republican Party or Donald Trump were against the so-called Browning of America, how does the man get more support in 2020 from Latinos that he did in 2016?
Exactly.
To look up any poll, I'm talking CNN, Pew Research, Gallup, Rasmussen, any poll you want. It's going to show you the same things because CNN for weeks had articles like, we don't understand what's going on. How did this happen? It proved the same thing. Donald Trump went from 29 to about 33, 34% of the Latino vote. Okay. So if that's the case, how is the GOP against the Browning of America? I don't understand. And let's look, and her argument I know is mostly based on the voter ID laws. Did y'all listen to our episode last week? We just told you that according to a recent poll, 69%, right, of African Americans and 82% of other minorities support voter ID laws. Same poll demonstrates 60% of Democrats support voter ID laws. So what is she even talking about, Jaime? Because one, it's giving me a headache, right? And two, it's the same crap that is fed to us year after year after year after year. Republicans hate people of color. Republicans hate this and that. Republicans, blah, blah, blah. Right? I just don't understand where is she coming from.
And it's just their narrative. See, they're the people who talk about facts, right? They're the fact checkers.
Right.
They're the ones who speak truth to power. They're the ones who, I mean, the Washington Post has a freaking title that says, truth, light of truth and darkness, right? Well, given what Trump says. And yet the facts are right in their faces. Right in their faces. And they're lying to the American public. And they're lying. She's lying. Right? That racist voter ID laws, when you just literally quote it from independent liberal leaning polls show the numbers you just said, Eddie. The numbers you just said. Overwhelming percentage of blacks, Democrats, liberals, of Americans agree that there should be voter IDs when voting. Okay. The polls have showed over and over and over again. But they don't care about those polls, Eddie. They don't care about those polls. The media literally thinks Americans are stupid, literally dictates that we're all racist, and literally lies in our faces. Yeah. Right? Because if they were honest about the subject, they would use these poll numbers to pretty much check themselves and say, how do you explain this? How do you explain these numbers?
Right.
Right? How do you explain these numbers that people want voter ID laws?
Right.
They don't have a problem. I mean, there's other independent broadcasters, right? Media personalities that have gone out there and actually gone to the black community, asked them directly the question, do you think voter ID laws are racist? And they say no.
No.
And they asked them, would you be opposed to, a voter ID to vote? They said no.
Yeah.
These people even asked, is it hard? Would it be difficult for you to get a voter ID? They said no.
Yeah.
Right? So they keep lying this. This is their tactic. They say Donald Trump is a liar, and they say that conservatives are liars. But if you clearly by the numbers, they're bigger liars than Trump ever is or was or will be, right? And he has his flaws, but the fact that they keep repeating the same lie over and over and over and over against the polls, right? Against the poll numbers, against what people actually think is what you should be paying attention, right? So they go up on news and everyone talks about the same. Remember, one thing we talked about him talk, the news media doesn't independently research things. They copy each other.
Yeah.
The news copy each other. So if CNN says it, then MSNBC says it, and then CBS says it, then ABC says it, and then Fox says it, and then they say it. So they repeat off each other. They don't independently check things. They just space it off. They quote each other. And since all the organizations quote each other and everyone's saying the same thing, people think, they must be validated right because everyone's saying the same thing. Yeah. They're validating each other, right?
Right.
Which is wrong. And this is the frustrating part that, Republicans are racist. They don't want people to vote. Republicans want people to vote. Republicans want people to vote.
Republicans advocate for minority rights to vote. I mean, for crying out loud, we started with the 15th Amendment.
Exactly. And the Republicans are always been against. The only thing they've had it is go ahead, sorry.
But what you're saying is 100% absolutely right, Jaime. And this is why the response from Alice Stewart, who's the other guest on this in this segment right here with Jim Acosta, upsets me the most. Okay, upsets me the most because you just pointed out, I'm trying to get the understanding, and you just painted that out beautifully, right? It's the narrative, it's all that. But this is one of the reasons I get mad at conservatives, because when you have the opportunity to come back at her with fact after fact after fact after fact, you get this.
Oh, God.
As it relates to the Republican Party and their efforts to try to get anyone like Stacey Abrams and more.
Is this a Republican Party that's against the browning of America? You're from Georgia. They had this voter legislation that was just passed recently. What do you make of what April just said?
No, I disagree with that strongly. The Republican Party certainly has lost crucial races in the last several years, but the key is, it's important to keep in mind, Donald Trump lost, period. No questions about that. But he also received 8 million more votes than he did back in 2016. So we are having more Republicans coming to the table, but the key is to keep them on board and bring in the people that we lost. I commend Stacey Abrams 100% for the work that she did with her and people like LaTosha Brown rallying voters in Georgia. They won 2 more Senate seats, and hats off to them for the good work they did. But I see that more as their strong efforts and Democrats coming out in the state of Georgia as opposed to Republicans who are sitting at home for any other reason than the fact that they didn't like the way that President Trump handled the election. They didn't like the fact he questioned the certification of the election.
Alice, I'm done. Alice, let's just stop right there. Alice, okay, this is what I'm talking about. All right.
Yes.
Here, okay, if it were me, well, I was asked that question, but she is totally wrong. And I would have brought up the points that I just said. How is the Republican Party against the browning of America? Give me one policy. Second, did you not look at exit polls from the 2020 election? Donald Trump increased in support in African-American men. In any minority, it wasn't I'm not talking a gargantuan jump, right? But those poll numbers increased again amongst minorities. That's step one. Step two, okay, let's talk about Georgia, okay? Because this is what it's all about. Okay, you know why we lost Georgia? Because we listen to QAnon and we listen to Sidney Powell. This is what it was. We listened to QAnon and we listened to Sidney Powell, and you know what? That influenced people to stay home. That's what happened in Georgia. Okay, you want to talk about this voting law that's in Georgia right now? Doesn't it state in the document that it requires ID, but there's also ways for people to get ID, including a free ID? Mm-hmm. Where is the voter suppression in any of those? So I want to know where you're getting your information from, because exit polls show that you're wrong. The Georgia bill shows you're wrong, right? and I just gave you numbers. And Democrats and African Americans overwhelmingly support voter ID. So where are you getting your information from? And this is the type of attitude I want to see conservatives have. Not the, I commend Stacey Abrams. Commend her for what? She's lied. She lost the election against Brian Kemp and is still crying about it, for crying out loud. Talk about not accepting the results of an election, okay? But she's still crying about Brian Kemp, right? She basically forced the MLB, because they contacted her, right? Forced the MLB to move location, costing $100 million that mom and pop shops in Atlanta could have had. Exactly. For the All-Star game, but whatever. Mm-hmm. But there you are, just playing the CNN role. Yeah, I'm just going to be the good old Republican and just be part of the group. Why? This is what Hyman's talking about. If you don't challenge it in a platform like CNN, right, when you have the opportunity to be, as I like to see, in the enemy's ground, and you don't portray those facts, then you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. Republicans need to stop being cordial when lies are being spread. And I'm not saying go out there and be like, you're an idiot. No, just be like, excuse me. Start challenging them. Start making them question, like, that's not true.
And challenge them. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good.
And challenge them, not just because, on talking points of like, well, this is America, we're not racist. No. Numbers. The numbers back you up, right? Yes. If we're talking about science and numbers and data, we have the data to back up the argument, to contradict the argument, right? Mm-hmm. They're talking about Georgia, how, Georgia's voter suppression. They didn't suppress nobody. All right. Latinos. Okay, first of all, Latinos come from countries that literally require you to have a voter ID.
Right.
Okay. Literally a majority of Latino countries, whether it be Mexico, Guatemala, Salvador, Argentina, Peru, wherever, literally, majority of Latin American countries require every single citizen to have a voter ID card. And if you don't believe me, just go straight down here 100 miles from where we're at in Riverside in Mexico, and it's called an INE. Instituto Nacional Electoral.
Yep.
And National Institute of Elections, right? Gives you an ID that makes you eligible to vote.
Yeah.
All right. So to say that that's racist in America, right? When you have a whole group of people who come from countries that require that, and they're like, that's normal. Why is that wrong? Why do these people keep talking? Just talking points. One. Yeah. And like Eddie said, and I know I'm repeating here a little bit, but I just want to focus on this, is that these are missed opportunities. She's praising Abrams. Okay, that's fine. Praise her for 2 seconds. But go to the facts. Georgia did not do no voter suppression. The only thing they're basing it on, the voter suppression part, is, you can't give water and food to people in line at the polls. That might be crazy. That might not be crazy. But if you ever gone voting, if you ever stayed in line and vote in person, there's conversations there that might influence the outcome of who you're going to vote for, right? Whether it's extreme or not, that can lead to, you might influence someone's vote while they're in the poll, right? Obviously, you can't wear any propaganda, any campaign logos, anything. But even within the limits, right? Let's say just 500 feet from the polling place, literally every candidate puts their sign 500 feet before the polling place.
Yeah.
Right? So they want to get the vote, obviously, because people sometimes don't know who to vote for, or they're not sure. And if people see signs, okay, I'm going to vote for the guy because a lot of people are voting for this guy, or there's a lot of signs. I mean, if you look at the way people vote, the most simple terms, right, is pretty much as who their neighbors are voting for, who the candidate they can recognize, who has the most signs out there, right? That's why in elections you see a bunch of signs everywhere. But the point of the matter here is that Georgia did not suppress the vote.
Yeah.
Honestly, and this could have been the opportunity for this representative of the GOP to say Georgia, one, expanded, two, made early voting, longer, three, allow people to prove that it's them voting by just sending your ID number. Just write in your ID number on top of your ballot and send it in to make sure it's you. Easy as that. If you think black people and Mexican are too stupid to put that on top of the ballot, then the racist people are the ones who are calling that racist.
Yeah.
Right? Because just like Joe Biden thinks that, Latinos and blacks are too stupid to use the internet, and that's not racist for some reason. Right? I mean, if you think that, they're too stupid to do that, you're the actual racist. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that happened in Georgia law. CBS did an analysis of that. CNN has did an analysis of that. And there's no proof of voter suppression. There's no proof. All they're basing it is on, well, you can't give water to people when they're waiting in line. That's terrible. And they have to prove their identity.
Nobody's even
Oh my God, that's suppression. Really?
Nobody's saying that. And that's not even what the law says. I mean, just to get to the end.
No, it's not. That's the interpretation of these liberal CNN reporters.
Yeah.
And the media, the mainstream media, is telling you this when the facts are the opposite, right? The facts are the opposite of it. And it's frustrating because they keep talking of it's what they're saying is true, and we're gobbling it up as truth. And that's the sad thing, because we have an abundance of information, an abundance of access to information, and yet we still fall for stupid lies like these.
Exactly. And like I said, for me, it's more frustrating when you have a seat at that table as a conservative and you give that kind of a response. And that's a lot of, I mean, there's few, right? You got your Candace Owens and you got these other conservatives, right, that will call you out. But the majority of them, let me get right here.
Socialism sucks.
I don't want to be deemed racist on national television, so I'm like, how do you expect to win? How do you expect to win? There's quite a few, right? And there's quite a few. But
no, it's understandable. It's totally like what she did. She totally had the opportunity to prove the argument wrong. She totally had the opportunity to negate the false accusations that Republicans want to get rid of Latinos or brown people. I mean, there's Republican Hispanics, there's Latino conservatives, and they don't talk about it. The media doesn't want to talk about them. Us, for example, they don't want to talk about it. You guys are racist. Against our own raza? Really? So it's ridiculous. And to stop the ranting, the facts need to be out there, and we need to be more on the facts. And they can't dispute the facts. They might question the facts, but the facts are there. And the lies keep going. And then they wonder why the country's so divided. Then they wonder why people don't want to believe the media. Then they wonder why people question, they don't want to believe the media. They want to go to outside sources because you're not telling the full truth. You're not giving the full information. You're not being honest. You're being liars, and you're speaking lies as if they were truth.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm done there. Sorry.
let's move on,
I'm not sorry, Eddie. Sorry for the public, because I know we're ranting on this.
So let's get into a serious matter now, which we all know the Derek Chauvin trial is going on, right? Not the Derek Chauvin, the George Floyd murder trial is going on. And that's one thing that has Minnesota right on the brink. And now let's add the Dante Wright situation, which sparked protests, unrest already the last couple nights. In Brooklyn, Minnesota, which is on the outskirts of Minneapolis. And I'll brief you on the incident. You guys can look it up on video, okay? So what happened is Mr. Wright was pulled over, right? And the cops proceed to do what they do. And unfortunately as we learned, Mr. Wright had warrants against him, right? The cops proceed to handcuff him. He resists arrest. Right, and he gets back in his car. There's the female police officer kept repeating, "I'm going to taser you. I'm going to taser you." Unfortunately, ends up shooting Mr. Wright, and who took off but died from his wounds as he went down the road and crashed. So he did pass. Okay, and of course, everybody jumped the gun once again, saying this was a product of systemic racism, white supremacy, and so forth. So on topics like these, right? And and it angers me so that we always jump the gun, right, without getting the facts. But one of the things I always do too, to ensure that we have a proper analysis, is I always engage with Jaime. Okay, Jaime, here's what I saw. What did you see, right? And then we come to a conclusion. So we agree, right? We agree this, we agree of that. Okay. What we're about to say does not negate our support for the police and does not confirm BLM matter and vice versa. Okay. It does not. We're just discussing the facts and the analysis of the camera footage that was presented. And we basically summarized it like this. And Jaime can give us 2 cents in a second. First of all, why did Mr. Wright wait until he's being handcuffed? Right, to start resisting arrest. First of all, we don't condone resisting arrest. But just think about it. The man is being handcuffed by a black officer, for all those that are following the narrative. Okay? He's being handcuffed by a black officer. Okay? He proceeds to resist arrest. The officer, which I still don't understand, how did I know a grip from a handgun to a taser gun? That's what we're going to talk about in a minute. Shoots the guy. So in this instance, for myself and Jaime, when we agreed, is that both parties are at fault. One for resisting arrest, and one for honesty. If you've been on the force that long, you should be able to know the differences between a handgun and a taser. Okay. The only explanation that I can have, right, for me personally, is like I said, sometimes when the adrenaline is rushing in the moment, you tend to forget things. But in this instance, you're a professional police officer that has been trained to handle situations like this. Mistakes can happen. I get it. We're all human. But this police officer will face the consequences of that mistake. And that's where I'll leave it, Jaime.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, if we go back even to the narrative, even as we discover what was gone, Mr. Wright had already an arrest warrant, right? And not only that, he's driving a car without plates.
Yeah.
Okay, without tags, expired tags, whatever it is, right? So, how do I put this? How stupid do you have to be to know that? You know what? I take that back. It's illogical to be someone who is already going through a previous case, right? Right? He's already being charged for other stuff. He's going through different cases, right? And you're driving around a car without plates. You're definitely going to get attention, right? The cop's going to pull you, hey, tags are expired. Give me your ID. Give me your ID, your information. What's going to pop on the system? An arrest warrant. Okay? So the fact that he goes out and drives on an expired tag, right? And it's not even the argument of the broken taillight argument. It's not even the argument of the,
Mr. Stop sign.
yeah, Mr. Stop sign, the typical racist excuse, right? To stop a black person. This is literally someone who has no tags. They looked up his name. You have an arrest warrant. You know what? You have an arrest warrant. I got to take you in. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Latino, Asian, Indian, blue, brown, purple, orange, pink. If you have an arrest warrant and you stop the traffic light, you will be arrested on the spot. Right? The fact that this young man decided to be irresponsible in a way, if he didn't want to get to jail, he would have avoided getting in their car and driving that car without expired tags. He would have avoided it, right? He could probably been saved his own life or been life if he would just avoid. I'm not condoning the criminal behavior, but if you don't want to get arrested after you have an arrest warrant, you avoid things that will get you caught up by the police. Okay, you will avoid that stuff, right? Now, that's on his part, like Eddie said. Now, on the police officer's part, I agree with Eddie. You have your handgun is always on the hand you're strong with, your dominant hand. If you're right-handed, it's on the right hand. If you're left-handed, it's on the left hand. Because it's hard to cross, you're not going to reach your gun across your body. You're going to reach your gun right when it's easily accessible, right, for danger. The taser gun is on the opposite side of your weapon. Opposite side. So this female officer who has years of experience I get it, the adrenaline, the fear, whatever. I understand that. I get that argument. However, you're trained for such situations like that to be able to make the proper decision, right? And she pulled out the gun, which is her dominant hand, and shot with that instead of the taser gun. That was her mistake, and she needs to own up to that mistake, right? Because I've always argued here in MM Talk that no one should die over a traffic stop. No one should even die in the hands of police officers, whether you're guilty or not, in my opinion. Right? No one should die. If the police officer beats the crap out of you for resistance, then you let him beat the crap out of you, right? Sue him later, whatever it is, right? But the problem is that no one should die I don't believe that no one should die with an interaction police officer. That's just no. And I'm going to compare this with Mexico because I have more experience with Mexican police officers. The Mexican police officers who literally walk around with AR-15s like it's another day, like it's literally whatever's. You know, a police officer can pull you over and they'll carry an AR-15 right here on the shoulder and do a traffic stop. Okay? And you hardly hear, and I say hardly because there's police deaths and corruption and stuff. That's a whole different topic. But you don't hear in Mexico a person was killed over a traffic stop.
Yeah.
And they literally carry an AR-15. Literally carry an AR-15.
Well, it's I guess we
Okay.
the word
So if they can have control, thank you, self-control on that matter, I believe that American cops can do the same thing. And that's my perspective, right? Both people, Mr. Dante and the police officer, were two people who unfortunately led to this. Two dumb people who reacted on the spot, who didn't think it through, and led to all this.
Yeah.
The young man, for knowing he has it, either he knows it or he knows he's in trouble. He's already previously in a different case, driving a car without tags. You're pretty much calling yourself on yourself. You're pretty much looking for trouble, right? I'm not saying that's his intent. I'm not saying that he got in the car. I'm going to see who's going to get me. No, but if you have a restaurant, you avoid those kind of stuff. You avoid something that will get you caught up. I mean, any common sense person will do that.
Yeah.
And the police officer, I mean, the reaction, the reflex, I get her excuse of the adrenaline stuff, but you're a trained professional. You're a trained professional. You should know better. Even in those critical moments, she should have known better. Yeah. Right? And then it's an unfortunate event. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I always believe, and I still stand with that belief, that no one should die at the hands of police. Only way you should die in the hands of police if you bust a Bonnie and Clyde. If you bust a shootout between you and the police officers, and you die between that, that's your fault. You started shooting at police officers, you should die on the spot if he shoots you at you. That I totally get that. But resisting arrest shouldn't lead to the death of someone. I'm sorry. Beat the crap out of them. Go for it. But it shouldn't lead to that. Honestly, I don't believe on that. I really disagree with that.
No,
These two people, Dante was wrong. The officer's wrong. The officer's going to go on trial. But this is not a case whether or not she was racist. This is the case of the lethal force.
Yeah.
Unlike George Floyd.
Sure.
Remember, George Floyd is whether or not the officer's knee caused his death. Right? That's the argument. On this case, I'm assuming the argument's going to be whether or not the officer intended to kill, and if not, is it voluntary, involuntary, or is it out of reaction because they're exercising their job, their duty as police officer? That's going to be a whole different discussion. Yeah. Right?
And just to
point out, it's unfortunate this happened. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and
you are blamed, and me and Eddie agree with that. Dante was in the wrong. And the officer was in the wrong. Dante, he's already had problem with the law, driving a car without tags. You should know better. Yeah. And the officer should have known better of where she should have pulled the weapon.
Yeah. Just so you also know and be updated that the officer has been charged with second-degree manslaughter for the death of Mr. Wright. And I'll conclude it to say, Jaime said, this is once again an indication of systemic racism. We have discussed that so-called pandemic here on MM Talk. We're not going to go into that again. Please tune into those episodes. But I didn't see the argument. But of course, you had organizations like Latino Victory, who and try to inform the Latino community, right? And I say try because they failed, and they told Latinos in an Instagram post that this was about systemic racism. And I'm like, did you see the footage? I replied personally, did you see the footage?
Yeah.
Okay, well, stop spreading lies because it's a lie. It's a lie.
Exactly.
It's a lie. But we'll leave it there, and we'll keep you updated with this particular case as it develops.
And like always, our condolences to the family of Mr. Dante, who lost a child or lost a sibling or friend. Our condolences to them. Obviously, there's still a loss to the families. Whether it's righteous or unrighteous, whatever you want to call it, it's still a loss for them. So our prayers out to the family. May God comfort them through this, process. Just like the George Floyd family and all the families, that have to go through this, unfortunate event.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of, who was it that said? No, actually, this doesn't apply to this person. But let's talk BLM, because this is one of the main. This is the main organization that spreads this narrative. That I believe it to be a lie. Studies shown that it's a lie. People always come at me with, well, you have to look at the population. No, that's already been saying, look, it's a lie. So there's no way you're going to change my mind. I've looked at it all. Okay, so, okay, besides.
And the research comes from Harvard. So come on. Harvard.
But anyways. So the one of the BLM founders, right? Her name is, what's her name again? Colors. What's her? Patrice? That's her first name?
Miss Patrice. Let's say Miss Patrice, the co-founder of BLM.
Patrice, okay, she's one of the BLM founders. Explain to me this. Isn't BLM all about the black community, enhancing the black community, make sure they elevate the black community? Let's just put it that way. They're all about the elevate the black community. Tell me why she does not take residence in a black community. And what do I mean? So Miss Patrice, right, self-proclaimed trained Marxist, let's add that, just bought a $1.4 million home in Topanga Canyon, California. Black population of Topanga, California is 1.6%. So I asked myself, right, what does a black activist who's preaching to the entire nation, invest in the black community, help out the black community, we have to bring economic justice, social justice, and whatever other kind of justice to the black community, lives in a white neighborhood? I'm asking myself, what is the purpose of that? So are you like the typical politician of to say, do as I say, I do as I. What was it?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I just felt like I had a George W. Bush moment there.
Hey, somebody find my bush, okay?
Right? So what I said, let's get the phrase out. So she buys the $1.4 million home, right? Let us begin. Where does a Marxist get the money for that? Because she didn't get it from the state. You see, a Marxist is all about getting the money from the state. Where does she get the money? Now, at this point, I can only speculate, right, where she got the money. BLM says because she gets it from her speaking engagements, and she has earned up to $120,000. Okay, well, that still leaves almost $1.3 million unaccounted for. I'm only speculating. Where does she get the money from? So these are the type of questions that I'm looking at, but I'm looking at the hypocrisy. What is she doing in Topanga Canyon and not living in Compton, not living in Watts, not living in Linwood? Because we're in California, right? Predominantly black neighborhoods. Why are we not investing in those neighborhoods, elevating those neighborhoods? But I digress. Jaime, what are your thoughts?
Well, hold on. I'm trying to do the math. So 1.4 million, right? 1400. Wow. Okay. I agree. So my first thought when I heard this is millions and millions of people donated to Black Lives Matter. And Black Lives Matters raised millions and millions of dollars for the movement. That's my first thought that came in. Right. My second thought is, did she use those millions of dollars from the fundraising to purchase not only the Topanga household, but 3 other homes in the millions? That's my first reaction. And I think that's anyone's first reaction. And I think if Ms. Patrice were a Republican or a conservative, no, let's not even say that. If she were even a Blue Lives Matter organizer and she would have bought this, the first thing the media would have asked is, she's probably using the money from the funding, cheating people off, cheating the people, just like they're talking about Mr. Who was it? I forgot the name of the banning about the border wall fundraising, right? And the border wall fundraising to build a border wall and how that money was used for private matters. We don't know that. We still have to investigate where the money came from. But I do know that the money had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, the bank isn't going to approve $1.4 million home just to anyone in the first place. Okay. Second, to pay a $1.4 million home in a span of a 30-year loan, you have to be paying a $4,000 mortgage minimum. That's not even including the interest rate, which is probably at 3.3%, right? That's not including the rent, the taxes. That's not including the wealth tax that they're probably going to put on her, right? So $4,000 minimum. That's just the house alone. That's not including taxes. That's not including whatever services they need for that community. It doesn't include, other fees, county tax, school tax, state tax, federal tax, all that, so on and so forth, which probably going to end up in $10,000 a month to be able to afford that home. Okay. All right. If her speaking engagements are $100,000 a year, that means 100% of her salary is going to the house.
Yeah. So
if you think about numbers, okay, I'm talking about consumer. I mean, let's think about this, people. In order for you to qualify for your home, you have to have a certain debt to ratio. Okay, you have to have certain debts lowered in order to afford a home. A bank is going to approve if you're over 30%, right? You have to meet a certain minimum, a certain threshold in order to afford a home, or else they won't sell it to you. The same applies to us poor folk looking for a $400,000 house. The same applies for someone who's going to get over $1 million home. Where's the money coming from? I would like to know. Where did she get the down payment for a $1.4 million home and 3 other homes? 2% of 1.4 million is how much?
3% of 1 point. What'd you say?
2%.
2%. You said
You have to give 2%.
million?
Yes, times 2%.
So
You have to pay $28,000.
okay, I was gonna say something.
$28,000, right? That's your what we call your 2%. What's it called? Down payment on the home, because every home requires at least a 2.2% down payment, at least, right? So let's think about this, folks. Let's think about this, right? Those who have bought a home or in the process of buying a home or who used to be homeowners, there's certain requirements, there's a certain amount of money, there's certain things that need to be done in order to buy a home. This is an expensive home. 1.4 million is expensive. And to meet the requirements, where is the money coming from? Where did the money come from? My biased, ignorant self is going to say Black Lives Matter fundraising. That's where I'm thinking straight off the bat. I could be wrong, and I probably will be wrong. But that's my first initial reaction is all the people who gave millions of dollars, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Windows, Apple, who gave millions and millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter, and every single person who has donated to Black Lives Matter, whether it be $5, $20, $100, $1,000, if you donate to Black Lives Matter, and my first ignorant reaction is that's where the money came from. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's it.
At this point,
I could be wrong, and I want you to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But that's my first reaction.
Yeah, and I have to leave it as speculation.
So we'll see.
For the sake of, for the sake of speaking factual. So, like Jaime said, he's speaking from his intuition, I'm saying we gotta wait. But if you were to ask me unofficially, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
come on. But anyway,
So we'll see.
for me,
We'll see.
for me, it's the hypocritical optics that come out of this, right? Oh, well, the black
That's a
community. Let's raise it. Let's make it. But you live in a white neighborhood, so it is what it is.
And what's the response from Black Lives Matters? They're calling this an attack by white supremacists
Yeah.
to fearmonger Americans over a black woman buying $1 million home.
That's just
What? What?
right.
How is that? Like the $1.4 million home, I think that could have been used in the community, right? And because literally they're about the community, the Black Lives Empowerment, and so on and so forth. They could use the 1.4 million to even start a legal fund.
But anyway,
There's many ways they could use this money instead of buying a home. I'm not saying yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, it's
let's just move on.
The hypocrisy here is it's
I wish we'd have done this.
white as day.
I mean, I wish we'd have done this segment sooner. Actually, now that I look at but we're back to CNN. Okay.
All right, we're moving on from the BLM Matters co-founder.
And all that. But Project Veritas once again has CNN on the ropes. Okay. Now they caught one of their technical directors basically confessing what we already knew, right? That they got Joe Biden elected and they got Trump out. That's the gist of it. Okay.
Exactly.
Here's a word of advice, people. If you have a profile on Tinder, don't go off showboating on the date about what you do at work. Because that's how this guy got caught. Okay.
Well, he wasn't showing up for work. He showed up how he did his work.
Yeah, so this guy is showing off to, I don't know, maybe some young chick like, I'm a technical director at CNN. And I got Joe Biden elected. You like Joe, right? I got him elected. I mean, you ended on tape. So once again, like we point out here over and over and over again, the media is not really conducting in journalism. The media is advocating for a certain group now, for a certain individual, for a certain wing. And if you look at studies, reports, and so forth, we know what that side is. So when you hear conservatives talking about fake news, unbiased media, there's bias in media. Let's not lie. But the overwhelming bias and advocacy coming up from these organizations, right? It's influenced you to vote a certain way. They're not providing really the unbiased perspective, right? Like, for example, here in MM Talk, it pains us when we go against our own people, but we have to do it because we have to hold our own people accountable. It sucks, but I mean, I just told you, Georgian Republicans, oh my God, Sidney Powell's our hero. How do you feel now? But anyways, the point is this. These tapes like CNN from Project Veritas are really revealing what's going on and the propaganda that's coming out, right? And it should be questioned. And I mean, I don't know what it's going to take to hold people like CNN accountable for, and just, I don't know, because they're not conducting in journalism. It's really mere unending advocacy. Like Hyman says, it's over 24-hour, 365 cycle. Donald Trump's a liar. Donald Trump's a racist. Donald Trump's a liar. Donald Trump's a racist. It's like 1984. That TV doesn't turn off, and you're basically brainwashed to believe that. And here we are, a CNN technical director on a Tinder date, admitting it freely. Don't have Tinder, Hyman.
No, not only that. Why isn't this considered intervention of the election?
Yeah.
Why isn't this considered?
How is this not voter suppression? Because you're
exactly
you're not allowing people to vote freely,
independently. That's right. And not only that, I mean, obviously, CNN's going to deny it. They're going to ignore this whole thing unless it becomes, big thing in social media, right? A lot of left-wing liberals are going to ignore this. No one's going to talk about it on the left wing. Obviously, Fox News is going to talk about it. Us in the conservative circles are going to talk about it. Us here in M&Talk are actually are actually talking about it. But the mainstream media is not going to talk about this video. They're going to ignore the whole thing. Why? Because they don't want to admit what this man admitted. It's confirming either they're going to deny this man as a liar and put him out there as like he's a liar, he's ruined his reputation, or they're just going to ignore it because they know it's truth. And regardless whether they ignore it or condemn him, he's speaking of what we here are probably considered as conspiracy theorists, crazy, locos, no evidence, collusion, conspiracy theorists. Let's sum it up as that. But the fact that we keep telling here in MM Talk, look, here in MM Talk, this is what we've always done, and we continue to do so, is the media is saying this, here's the facts, here's the poll numbers, here's the research, here's this, they missed that, did they discuss this, look, they missed this point, you know? And we're bringing you all the facts we can, right? As much as we can to the truth, for you can make an unbiased decision on policy, on politics, on how we run our country, right? We don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. That's your choice. But we want you to understand the truth, the facts, the research, the proof, the evidence, right? To make informed decisions. And when you have the news media, and like I said earlier, that lies, straight out lies, right? And then you have this man who confesses the lie, right? And then not only do they lie, each news media just copies each other, right? And repeats what everyone else says. Oh, this person said it, so we're going to say it. So you propagate this lie even more across the board. And since you think that everyone's talking about the same thing, you believe that everyone's telling the truth, right? But you don't research as to what's the root of it. They're repeating each other. Why they're repeating each other? What's going on? Research. And this man, obviously, for me, this is a shooting gun.
Yeah.
On the propaganda by CNN and the mainstream media, right? We've shown proof that 80% of news reporters are registered Democrats, right? We have presented you here on MM Talk the different way the news media handle situations. And the most recent one we've been talking about is the border crisis, right? How it was, the worst during Trump, but it's humanitarian under Biden. And this is the same thing, right? So we're not here to see conspiracy theories. We're here to enlighten you as to use your coco, use your cabeza, right? To analyze these people. And this man is totally saying the truth. He's totally exposing what CNN is doing. And no one's going to talk about it because they don't want you to know that you're being lied to.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want you to rise up as a public, as a group, us as citizens, as Americans who all want the same thing. We might disagree on how to get there, but we all want the same goal, right? They don't want us to get together and be able to say, hey, you guys are lying. You guys are dumb. You guys are lying to us. Why? Because that weakens their control over us. That weakens their control over us as a society, And I know I'm talking crazy right now, right? I'm talking crazy right now. But that's what's keeping us divided, honestly. Honestly, if you talk to your neighbor, you want the same thing. Food, shelter, protection, and retirement, right? Latinos want that, blacks want that, whites want that, Asians want that, right? But CNN will tell you whites think you're dumb and blacks, are suffering because of whites. And this is a division and they're just lying and it's just a propaganda scheme.
Yeah.
And that's all I got to say. Honestly, you got to watch the video yourself. And what he's saying, I agree with. I think that's happening.
Yeah, because it's a pretty long video.
And you're not going to hear about it across the board in the mainstream media because they're not going to talk about it. And whoever mentions it, it's going to be considered conspiracy theory, and it's a lie, and that man's a liar, and they're going to probably just try to defame him. And that's what's going to happen. And we're going to continue as a society to believe these lies of reporters, as speaking truth, right? Even when the facts are in your face, showing you the opposite of what's going on.
Yeah. And we'll leave it there. And
not what's going on, what the reporting, sorry.
Yeah. So that's that. And let's just briefly touch on this last topic. Senate Bill 663 in California. As you know, we have a recall going on. We got a recall. Governor Newsom said it's being led by white supremacists and cute conspiracy theorists, even though a poll shows that the large voting bloc that is voting in favor of removal of Gavin Newsom is Latino. So I'm still waiting for him to explain that to me. But according to Assembly Bill, excuse me, Senate Bill 6, State Senate Bill 663, which does not affect this recall, but will affect future voting endeavors, will allow those politicians in question to see the names of the signatures of a recall. And we'll have 45 days to basically assess whether or not their campaigns will have 45 days to assess whether or not those signatures those people were well informed as to what they were signing. This does not scare you. You really don't like your freedom. And if you're a Democrat, you should be insulted. Because what this bill does, and this is my opinion, right? It literally does provide state security police. A lot of people are going to say Gestapo. I'm going to go Stasi. Okay, I'm going to move forward. Germany. Okay, Stasi style tactics, right? Where they're going to try to convince you or re-educate you on how you should maybe vote by convincing you that maybe you didn't have all the facts, right? Just think about that. You did your research, right? You live in California. You made a decision based on the current conditions of your state and where you live. And politicians are going to tell you, well, maybe you weren't paying full attention, even though you live it day to day. Day to day. You live it day to day. You're going to have a politician, right, say, well, did you actually consider this? Do you know what this is what we're trying to do? I mean, I don't care who does that, what side does that would piss me off, because I said, what are you talking about? I did my research. I did my due diligence. I live it day to day. Leave me alone. You know, But this is literally state police style tactics, man, on the Californian voters. And like I said, if you're a Democrat, you should be insulted. If you're a Republican, we're already upset. So you just upset it even more. And there's other Republicans, they go, well, go ahead. I mean, what are you're gonna find out that I wrote it? I don't care, But for me, is the intrusion, right, of your state government into your civil liberty. Just to summarize it, that's what it is, and I don't like it.
Exactly. Actually, I call it Gestapo style.
Yeah, I know.
Because the Gestapo is the secret police.
Everybody uses World War II. I'm moving forward. Okay, I'm going to start.
Where's Stasi coming from, Eddie? Just for people who don't know.
Oh, the Stasi was okay. Brief recap of history. Okay, Germany was divided into two after World War II. You had East Germany and West Germany. The eastern part landed under the Soviet bloc. Their state police was called the Stasi. I'll leave it there.
So the politician who wrote this bill was himself recalled.
Yeah.
So he was recalled back in 2018.
Right.
He regained his seat back, right? But he was recalled in 18. This man who got removed from office back in 18 is the one who authored this bill to move forward. Okay. His justification is that the average California voter is too stupid to understand what the recall is about. So instead of, allowing these recalls to happen all the time, to pretty much remove any politician from office when they're doing a poor job, we want to make sure that we want to go to their home, get their information, and ask them, are you sure you're rolling the right way? Are you sure, like Eddie said, are you sure about this? Are you sure you want to change your mind about this recall? Because I think you should change your mind.
Yeah.
And the only people who can have access, according to the bill, is people in the politician's staff. And that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, just basically,
Has extra information to figure out whether or not you were well informed of the recall. Just the people working for the congressman, right, or the senator, or whoever's in office, right? From what I understood from what I understood on the bill,
it's just basically just anybody in the staff. That's it.
Anybody in the staff can go.
Yeah.
So imagine you're recalling, like an example, Newsom. Let's say you send a petition to recall Newsom because you don't like, for whatever policy, you don't like it, right? Imagine someone from his office going to your house and saying, "Are you sure about that? Are you sure you want to change that vote? Because I think you're wrong, and you should not recall Mr. Newsom because of these reasons. Wouldn't that piss you off? Wouldn't that be
what if
political harassment? Wouldn't
Yeah,
that be political
that's what I'm saying.
persecution? Wouldn't that be tyranny?
tyranny?
Tyranny. Okay. Wouldn't that be a dictatorship? Don't dictators do that? Convince you to change your vote, maybe to reconsider voting against this politician, whoever it is, right? And the fact that it's going through the legislature, right, and is being passed and moved forward, should clearly tell you where the Democrats. Remember, this is a blue state. This is a blue state. Blue of the bluest states in the whole country. Local officials are blue, Democrats. Local commissioners are Democrats. State officials are Democrats. State appointees are Democrats. State governor is Democrat. State senators are Democrats.
Democrat.
Majority of state Democrats. So I know I'm repeating this, but I want our viewers to get this to their minds. I want you to understand that it's blue of the blue. There's hardly any Republican leaders in the state of California. It's really, really small, right? So don't come at me saying that, oh, Republicans are doing this. No, the Democrats, the party of free speech, the party of supposedly fair elections, of truth, the party of anti-fascist, the party of anti-dictatorships, of anti-tyranny, right? This is the party that wants to do this in California.
Yeah.
Right? So you're allowing the government to literally harass you if you vote against them.
Jaime,
Literally.
it's not even harassment. It's literally government telling or influencing you how to vote.
Exactly.
It's not even harassment.
Dictator.
It's literally government telling you you should vote. Okay? That is done in dictatorial countries. That's not done in America. Right?
It doesn't.
And that's where it upsets me. That this passed the Senate committee in the state house, and like Jaime says, because we're the blue states. But if, like I said, any free loving Californian and American, right, that's watching this right now should be really upset. Should be really upset that this type of bill even exists.
Exactly.
And it's because Democrats, right, are upset of what's going on right now. The people of California said, we had enough of this crap that's going on in Sacramento. We want some change. But now they want to rig the rules into their favor so they can influence the election. That is voter suppression. That is clear voter suppression, okay? That is clear violation of your civil liberties. So if you don't...
And all because they want to retain power.
Because they want to maintain power.
It's a power grab. They want to stay in power. And the only way they're going to stay in power is by intimidating you.
Yeah.
Right? Intimidating you and saying, change your vote. You're wrong.
It's ridiculous.
Right?
It's ridiculous. And people should be really upset about this. But of course, it's going to be, I'm not going to see it a lot on Spectrum One. I'm not going to see it a lot on my local news, but we'll see what happens. But for all of you that listen to Talk, I'm telling you right now, pick up your phones, call your state senator, and be like, heck no. Mm-hmm. Because I'm warning both sides. This bill is dangerous. It should not exist. You should freely be able to vote as a Democrat, and you should be free to vote as a Republican based on your values. Nobody should interfere with that, and especially not the government. Government knows best is the most outrageous statement I've ever heard in my life. Okay?
Exactly.
So that's where I'll leave it.
Well, thank you very much for joining Talk this week. We thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, suggestions, you need us to clarify anything, please comment below or message us through email or DM. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please don't forget to share with family and friends of what we speak here today. And like we always say here at Talk, I'm Jaime Moreno.
This is Eddie Barmaleco.
And remember, we're tired of it too.
All right.